My name is Aisha. Welcome to One Elder Speaks. Today I'm going to talk about a lot of different things, and uh, and I'm going to kind of get to a message that I've been given for this March. You haven't seen me much lately. I've been really busy, as I know you guys have been as well. Just pretty much trying to get by and dealing with family and responsibilities and that sort of thing. And there's certainly a lot that's going on in the world, especially right now. I'm going to be looking down at my notes, and I just wanted to let you guys know that if you see me going down there, that's what I'm doing. The first thing I wanted to talk about was religion. When I was 16, a friend of mine killed herself, and my religion was pretty restrictive. There was no, give for any of that stuff. And I was asking, so what happened to her soul? And I'm hearing, she's going to hell, honey. And I'm like, because she didn't get it together in a few short years, she goes to hell. And after a while of stewing in that, I was like, I'm not into this anymore. That's not the God that I care to follow. I always loved what Jesus had to say. I always loved the compassion and the valuation of people who are in need or downtrodden, and for that reason, I always loved that whole message. But I couldn't get into that whole fire and brimstone kind of God, and that's kind of what I was fed every Sunday, which was really difficult for me. I decided that just wasn't the religion that I was going to follow, and so I started looking to a whole lot of different ones to see what was the same in them. And what was the same was that message of be kind to one another, be kind to yourself, do the right, honorable thing, even though it's the harder thing to do. And so if, I took that as my religion then, and I follow that, and my God is love, and that's what I try to value in this life. When somewhere about 2000, I think 14 or 15, I became aware of, let me backtrack. And I'm not going to edit this thing, by the way. The origin stories of human beings fascinated me. It started out for me, Chariot of the Gods, back in the 70s, but a plethora of information since then about technologies or evidence of technologies found on this earth that could not be explained with the history that we are aware of. If you want to look more into this, I recommend Graham Hancock. He's very interesting. And he has a lot of information on it, and it got me to thinking about who we are as an origin, and again, I'm going to all these different origin stories across the world, and I'm looking for what is the same. One of the things that keeps peeking out is this idea that we are a hybrid of alien and the original people who were here. In that the systems that we have in place now were pretty much put into place by them. They taught us, and we treated them as gods, and because they were pretty, crazy out there doing, wild things that we could not explain. And that sits well with me, that resonates with me, so that's something that I also kind of keep in my mythologies. When you look at what's important, though, I want you to know that even though this resonates for me, and even though I feel like this is where our origin story is, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, what I've been told this month is what matters is who we are and where our heart is at, and whether we're treating other people with the correct amount of honor and love. But let me continue. So I got into looking at the Mandela effect probably about 2014, 2015. I was kind of laid into it, but when I first saw it, it was like the Berenstain Bears, and I was like, wait a minute, I used to read that to my daughter very familiar with that, and I don't remember Berenstain at all. And I'm kind of a word person. You're not going to see me, telling you this logo is different from that one, because logos don't really stick with me, but words do. One of the, the whole thing about Mandela, I did hear he died in the 80s, and I did see that he reemerged at some later date. I assumed that he was stuck in the deepest, darkest part of the prison, and they told everybody he was dead because they didn't want to deal with the international pressure anymore. And there was quite a bit back then to free Mandela. But I don't know. I mean, I wasn't that closely in tune with international news in those days. So I really couldn't tell you much more about it than that. I do know that the Bible that I remembered was the lion lays down with the lamb, and that's gone now. Now it says the wolf lays down with the lamb. I am well aware that Star Wars, he said, "Luke, I am your father." Yeah, that's exactly what he said, and that's what I remember, and that's how that is. The one thing that got me really, though, was they were saying magic mirror on the wall, and I was like, wait a minute. I had a VHS still, so I got out an old tape of my daughter's that was, produced prior to 2012, and it was and I put it in the dilly, and I was like, and she said, magic mirror on the wall, and I was like, oh my God, it was mirror on the wall. And when I started looking into that, it kind of led me over to look into the whole CERN thing, and the Goddard Tunnel, and the opening ceremony, which if you ever want to see a dark ritual, that's the darkest thing I've ever seen in my life. The God principle. And I really think because of there was algorithms on Google you could look at, and you could see where Charles M. Schultz was spelled with a T, and it changes over to Charles M. Schultz where it's spelled without a T. And where things were being looked up with this spelling, and then it changed over to this spelling, and you could see that. But I don't know how to get back there. I'm not technologically savvy, but I do remember that. And I don't know. I really think that CERN opened up something and collapsed a timeline, collapsed my timeline, the one that I remember. Does it matter? No. We're here now. We have to deal with now. We have to find our hearts within ourselves, and we have to, learn to love one another and learn to treat each other with respect and value, and look at what we've been doing in the past, So for me, it's information, but it ultimately, it doesn't matter. I do want to talk about one thing though, because I haven't heard this one yet. And back in the 70s, I was very interested in Linda Goodman, an authoress. She wrote Sun Signs and Love Signs and a couple other books, and I got into those. She talked about Tesla. Now, I was not a science nerd, so I didn't know that much about him. I knew about the Tesla coil, and that was it. And she said that he died walking home to his laboratory in Cripple Creek, Colorado in like the 1890s. And that he was hit by a vehicle, by a car, an automobile. And it's like, at that time he was having issues with Edison, and they were, well aware of each other. And so he had some notoriety. And he was talking about offering some sort of free energy to people, and for everybody to have access to without paying a electric company, and he mysteriously died. And so in my timeline, he died in the 1890s by very suspicious circumstances. Cars were not, something that everybody had back then. Only the rich could afford that stuff, and it was just a play toy. The Model T was not on the production line yet, so none of that stuff, it was just so, nothing to see here, move along, folks, is one of those things. And I thought, that's just awful. And it was, until later on, I read an article about him dying in 1940s in a New York hotel room, impoverished. And I was like, what? And I looked into that. Wow. And and this is just my belief system. This is nothing I have substantiated evidence on at all. It's just what I resonate with. When CERN collapsed that timeline, the timeline that sprang up was the one where, well, to be honest, I really think that they messed with time. And they went back and they took all the information that they could from Nikola Tesla, and they convinced him that he was, that none of his experiments were working out. I'm sure they dicked around with him, to be honest. And I also think that they played into his mental health issues. And I also think that they did that in order to take away his power, and to take away his authority, and to take away, anybody's belief in him at all. So, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but you know what? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. We are here now, okay? And now we're being asked to love, to give, to nurture, to balance, and we're being asked to quit deifying these assholes that are in power. These assholes, they make money. Oh, he must be smart. He's making money. No, but I can almost guarantee you he is an ass, because that grabbing of money usually means you have to run over people to get there. You have to play people, run over people, fuck people over. I mean, this is just my belief system. So I think we need to have new heroes for sure. I got 3 messages this month, and they all pertain with how we love. Message number 1, and I'm not going to give you the gist of all of it, but I'm going to tell you, I had an incorrect notion about how relationships should be cemented together. And what I was taught was that the cement to a relationship is intimacy. And intimacy is built by trust. And when that is not there, then it's not going to sustain. It's not going to keep. Number 2, I had at some point decided that somebody had slighted me to so much that I was going to energetically get a divorce on an emotional level. Every other level, I would be there for that person. I would do what I needed to do, but the emotion was like divorced. I didn't realize that I had done that. And that person did not deserve that. It was a misunderstanding on my part, and an inability to understand what was going on with that person. I still don't understand what's going on with that person, but now there's hope that we can work on it, because I approached that person. I talked to them about it, and I said, I did this, and I am so sorry. And I don't know how, it's going to work out, but I have the best hopes that someday I will be forgiven for that big mistake. And the third down note was the most horrendous of all, which basically was telling me that, I had not made the right choices. I had put stuff, and I had put job, and I had put responsibilities, and I had put money above people and the welfare of all the souls that you're around, like the cats, the welfare of the gifts that you have been given, like music, like, writing. And I haven't used these well. I haven't nurtured them. I haven't given them time and attention. I haven't given them the unconditional love that they so desperately needed. And I've been very selfish and set my sights on the wrong thing. And so all these conspiracy theories and all this stuff, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What matters is who are you now and how are you going to walk tomorrow? What are you going to implement to make sure that you're constantly keeping what's important uppermost in your mind? And of course, what's important is people and souls and the earth and honor and courtesy and strength of heart. And I have to do a lot of correcting on a lot of the ways that I behaved. I'm going to have to do a lot of correcting, and it's probably going to take some time with me. It usually does. I'm a little hard-headed. Takes some practice. It usually does. I'm a little hard-headed. But that's the only way, man. It's the only way we're going to get through what we're going through right now. Is we have to come back to what's important. We have to start. We have to. I guess one of the ways that I had put it before was quit deifying the rich and the powerful, and start putting our attention on those that we have dismissed, the disenfranchised, the lower income, the people who have less hope and less resources to get them through these hard times. So I'm kind of asking you guys, because they've asked me, kind of look to what you value and let's make some changes in that so that we can start being better persons and teaching others how to be better people. And then we can start making systems that are better systems. And by this, I mean make systems that work and that are life-affirming and are not choking the life out of the earth and out of the people. I really feel like when these aliens came down, they kind of taught us all this, to be ashamed of our nakedness, and they taught us all these things and the idea, we're helping you out, and then they put themselves in positions of power and just raked it in, we got this. They're going to do whatever we tell them to do. And it's kind of felt like that ever since. And I'd like to see new systems in place, and I'd like to see a lot more hope and love in the world, and the only way that we're going to do that is through ourselves. It's through how we treat people, how we act with people, how we are with the world and with the earth. That's the only way. We can make we can make grocery bags out of vegetable matter and hemp. Stuff that's biodegradable, and we don't do it. There's something crazy going on here, but it's time it came down, don't you think? And we started creating the world that we want to see for our children and for our grandchildren. Man, I don't care what comes down the pike. I'm not going to lose hope. And I want you guys to know that I love you. And I'm practicing to learn how to truly love you unconditionally as a whole. In all honesty, that is my goal, honestly, is to get to that place. And so I'm going to keep working at it until it feels, natural. And then something else will pop up and go, you need to address this. It's like, right, okay, I guess I will. Don't guess I'm going to get out of it this time. I don't know. Keep your chin up and let's create a different world. This kind of feels like a dystopian nightmare a lot of the times to me. And I know that we can go back to the Garden of Eden if we want to. We just turn our backs on all these people that want our veneration and, our attention. And start doing stuff the way we want it done. They'll fight at first, but eventually, if enough of us turn, they ain't going to be able to do shit. They're just going to have to sit back and take it. Anyway, take care. Have a good one. Stay safe. Bye.